to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Ashley, can I have roll call, please?
Alt. Here. Lot. Menard.
Here.
Hivma.
Here.
Jurdy. Do you have Jurdy on Zoom?
I don't see her in Zoom.
She's not on Zoom. Okay. Fisher. And Briggs. We have a quorum that would not be able to pass anything though. No items. Here comes Henry.
There
So
we
if we
go.
just would like to wait for a quick second, we can.
Ashley? Oh, you forgot one.
Yeah, so.
Nice to have her.
I know, okay, so thank you. Fisher? Cavalier?
Here. Okay,
So that if you do have Christy come on, would you let us know?
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Chuck.
okay, it's time for the open forum. If anyone would like to address council on any issue not already on tonight's agenda, may come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please. Hearing, go ahead.
My name is Amanda Abrahamson,
Please.
32822 230th Street Southwest, Fisher, Minnesota.
Okay,
Okay. So my name is Amanda Abrahamson, and I'm the lifeguard supervisor at the Crookston Community Pool. I've been in this position since March, and I found it incredibly fulfilling. Previous to this, my involvement with the pool was primarily with my children and our homeschool community. I've organized private group rentals, and my older children have participated in homeschool swim lessons over the past 10 years, as well as private swim lessons from Cody for my youngest daughter. As a family, we've enjoyed countless hours swimming and playing at the pool as well. Our community pool provides invaluable benefits to Crookston residents of all ages, abilities, and budgets, promoting health, well-being, and a strong sense of community, making it a worthwhile investment despite potential maintenance concerns. The pool is one of the only places that provides a low-impact, full-body exercise for people of all ages, sizes, and capabilities in our town. Buoyancy in the water reduces the stress on joints, making it ideal for people with arthritis, joint issues, or recovering from injuries. Athletes from the university use it for cross-training and to recover from stress injuries. And myself, my arthritis at the age of 39 has made it so swimming is the only exercise option that doesn't tighten the pain in my joints and even brings relief. Naturally, the water resists Do you know that drowning is the #1 cause of death in children ages 1 to 4? According to the CDC, approximately 4,500 people die each year from drowning in the United States. In recent years, the city has not provided the lessons that the community needs. That has been the biggest complaint that I have heard from parents. When the schools come, the children are delighted to be here, but so few of them know how to swim well, and that is scary and dangerous. The Crookston Community Pool has provided quality swim lessons to over 160 children this summer alone. Many have signed up again for the fall sessions. The training that they need and we provide is invaluable to the community. When I checked this summer, Choice Health and Fitness in Grand Forks had a wait list so long that they were no longer adding people to the list for swim lessons. On top of this, the Hislop, which is one of the only other places offering lessons for the area children, is closing in March. There is a high demand for swim lessons in this area, and an open functional pool is needed to provide this. Swimming is a life skill and is necessary for the children growing up in Crookston, in a state with over 10,000 lakes. It is understandable that there are concerns about operating costs. The school not budgeting the $30,000 that they are supposed to pay to the city per their contract is a big deal. This is a brief on their end, and I have no idea how those things work, but I would think that just because they are a school doesn't mean they get to sign and break contracts at their whim. As for our end, our numbers have been up since Andrea temporarily took over, and then I followed her. During the summer months, we had an average of 350 people per week sign in and swim. This number does not include staff or the swim lesson traffic that we had throughout the summer. We have added in swim lessons that will be a regular activity from here on out. I have already proposed rates for monthly memberships and family membership pricing that would up our numbers and bring in more revenue. Riverview has reached out about setting up something for their employees. There was some confusion about that last week. It was not for therapy. If we could set up something with area businesses, that would be fantastic for the pool. The Grand Forks Public School has reached out about the possibility of renting the pool for a 3-year contract for their swim teams, and we would have the answer to that in the next 2 months or so. All of this would help our bottom line. Shopping locally has been a priority with the pool, but we can look around to see if costs can be cut by ordering chemicals and salt elsewhere. There have been some very successful fundraisers done through Fin and Fit for the pool that the community has enthusiastically supported, and I know they would continue if the city council was on board. It would be especially helpful if I could make these decisions for the pool without running everything through the council. Being hired in March and having to wait an entire year to propose the membership pricing was and is a huge hit to the pool's potential revenue this summer, which of course helps to offset costs. The pool has not been properly maintained for quite some time. However, there has been a lot of maintenance lately that we can mark off for possible future problems. The pool looks great. Gabe, the janitor, does an amazing job in keeping everything clean and orderly. Everything has been running smoothly, and there's nothing to indicate that the pool won't last for some time. A little regular maintenance goes a long way. We've had wonderful lifeguards and front desk staff that have been consistently open since Andrea took over at the beginning of the year, all the way through till the fire occurred. The pool itself has been running great, and we have had only compliments since that time. The Parks and Recreation Department is a service to the community. It's not a money-making entity, nor is its purpose to draw money to area businesses. I am concerned that as a whole, we have been sidetracked with this concept. On the City of Crookston's website, it states that the philosophy of the Crookston Parks and Recreation Department is to provide activities for the citizens of our community at a reasonable cost. And in the Fall Fund Finder, it states that the philosophy of the Crookston Parks and Recreation Department is to provide activities and amenities that contribute to the physical, social, and emotional wellness of the youth and adults of the community. The Crookston Pool meets and exceeds them both. Aside from the free amenities offered through the Parks and Recreation Department, the pool is the most budget-friendly option for families like mine. As a single mother with 3 children living at home and with a part-time job supporting us, I cannot afford anything on the Fund Finder. However, I can on occasion splurge on a fun day at the pool, and it is so worth it in the memories we make and have from time spent there. I ask you as a council and the city as a whole to support the pool to remain open until such a time as it can no longer be maintained. I urge the council to fix what needs to be done for the fire alarm system so we can reopen as soon as possible and continue providing for the city this invaluable service. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the chambers? Chuck, anybody on the phone bridge, please?
No one on the phone bridge, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you.
Agent logged off.
We have one proclamation tonight, and we also have a presentation. We'll start with a proclamation. Okay, the City of Crookston mayoral proclamation do declare October 7th through the 13th, 2024 as Maroon and Gold Week. Whereas UMN Crookston, a land-grant university, a public baccalaureate, and whereas UMN Crookston proudly carries on the tradition of educational services to Northwest Minnesota. And whereas UMN Crookston values diversity, leadership, community, innovation, sustainability, and quality. And whereas UMN Crookston is passionate about learning and discovery to serve the public good. Now therefore, I, Dale Stainbrook, Mayor of Crookston, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim October 7th through the 13th as Maroon and Gold Week. In testimony whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the official seal of the City of Crookston, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim October 7th through the 13th as Maroon and Gold Week. Would this be for you, Michelle?
Yes, and there are a handful of students here that would like to accept them on behalf of the university, please.
Come on up. It's a privilege. Hi.
Hello.
And you are?
I'm Lewis.
Lewis?
David.
Thank you.
Zach.
Zach?
Cody.
Nice to meet you guys.
Thank you, sir.
Gentlemen, can you all turn around? There. Thank you.
Sneak in here.
All right.
Here.
Yep.
Oh, there it goes.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, we have a presentation regarding water and wastewater utility rate study for the city of Crookston. Welcome.
Thank you. Mayor Steinbreck, members of the council, my name is Miranda Clevin. I'm from AHS Nexus. And thank you for having me here tonight to talk through the results of our water and wastewater study for the city. Next slide, please. So essentially, when we do studies like this, there's two objectives. The first is to determine, are we generating enough revenue to cover the cost of our utilities? And secondly, how are we generating that revenue? Are we getting it from the right people? What does our revenue stability look like? Are we fully funding reserves, and are we adequately planning for the future? So these were all questions that were evaluated throughout the study. Next slide, please. So to start off, it's important to understand that these enterprise utilities need to be what is referred to as self-supporting. In other words, the rates charged need to be reflective of the full cost of operating those systems. And so that, of course, consists of meeting operation and maintenance costs to operate the utility, but in addition to that, it means that the revenues need to adequately fund the capital related revenue requirements of the system. And those can be represented a number of ways. Their debt service principle, rate funded capital on your CIP, capital that you pay cash for. It can be contributions to reserves. Essentially, we just need to make sure that you are receiving revenues into the system on an annual basis that exceed or either meet or exceed depreciation in order for us to determine that you're fully covering the cost. Next slide, please. And so I'm just gonna spend a minute on this, as the type is kind of small, I apologize, but part of the objective of the study was to make sure that you had adequate targets for your reserve funds and that you were meeting those targets. And of importance to you really at this time are your operating reserve, and there we evaluated that in terms of your city policy of having a target of 45% of annual revenue requirements as the minimum. And the second is down at the bottom, or I guess in the middle of this chart, where we looked at capital reserves, because that was the main concern. And really, we often get the question, what should our capital reserve be set at? Give me a number, but it's really not a number so much as it is an annual investment in the utility. And so that's what we spent some time looking at. You're also at the same time doing a project where you are evaluating capital improvement planning for both the water and wastewater utilities. And so what we have used in this study is placeholders that we came up with Brandon's help. But what you are going to be getting from your capital improvement planning study, those values will be more specific and can replace the values that we use as placeholders. But for now, we wanted to have something in there looking into the future that was viewed to be representative, knowing again that would be replaced in the near future with your actual capital planning values. Next slide, please. So it's pretty easy for people to understand that we need to generate enough revenue to cover operating costs. We can't provide water, we can't, provide sewer service if we can't pay labor costs, if we can't pay electricity costs and so on. But the part that is often overlooked by many systems is that capital component. So I like to use this graphic to attempt to explain why it's important that we are adequately reinvesting in the utility on an annual basis in terms of capital, not just in years where we have a project we need to do or when we have a debt schedule, but all the time. There's always a cost associated with the value of the system. And so if we look at this chart and we assume the bar in year 0 is representative of the total value of the system when it's constructed, over time, you will see the dashed blue line decreases, that actual value decreases as the system depreciates over time. However, it's still assumed to be operating at a consistent level over this period, and so that's represented by the gray line. We're assuming that for the system to operate at a consistent level of service, providing the quality and the quantity of treatment that you need, it's going to operate at the value needs to be level. And so in order to do that, we need to be infusing cash back into the system on an annual basis so that total value plus reinvestment is equal at least to depreciation. Now in reality, there's inflation, and so by the time your assets need to be replaced down the road, saving for depreciation, for instance, is not adequate. There's going to be, accumulated inflation over time, and so that's the red funding gap indicated there. So for that reason, there's a lot of different ways to look at capital planning. The baseline entry level is to be sure you're funding depreciation. A little bit better than that is to escalate the value on an annual basis and kind of back calculate depreciation. And then the best approach to it is actually to understand your infrastructure, what condition it's in, when it needs to be replaced, and what it's going to cost for replacement. And based on that information, evaluate an annual reinvestment. And that is what you're starting to do by developing your capital improvement plan. So next slide, please. So for the purpose of the water study, I noted that we used some placeholder values, and that's what you see here in the blue. This is our representative CIP for the study period, showing how much it's projected that you could be spending for each of the next 5 years on capital in the water system. So the lower dashed line there is the depreciation each year. The red dashed line above that is if we were to inflate depreciation to get a little bit higher target. The gray portion of that second bar is representative of recommended contribution to reserve for that year in order to make sure that you're fully funding the capital components of revenue requirements. So what you can see from this is you, again, marching forward, you are, fully funding and going beyond that in some years, the capital components of the revenue requirements. But as I mentioned, please note that once you get your capital improvement plan values back, they will undoubtedly be different from this, but this at least gets you started. Next slide, please. This is the same story for wastewater, and even on the wastewater side, it's even more apparent that your approach over the next 5 years will be potentially exceeding depreciation in all years, meaning you have quite a bit of investment that needs to be made within the system. So, certainly funding full cost of that system marching forward. Once again, these values will be updated once you have your capital improvement planning results coming. Next slide, please. Okay, so we can go one more slide here. We'll talk about the water analysis. So what we like to do is we look at, what do you need next year, but it's also helpful to know what the years beyond that look like. And so we modeled projected revenue requirements through 2029. So for O&M, it's assumed essentially that those costs increase by an inflationary value each year. We use 3% for that. The rate-funded capital line there corresponds to the CIP values you saw on the previous charts. Contributions to reserves would be any additional investment that we're suggesting in years where you're not quite, where we're not seeing that you would reinvest at the level of depreciation. And then that gives us our total projected revenue requirements for the period. On the bottom, if we just marched forward with existing rates, you can see what those revenues would be, and you can see that we would have a revenue shortfall in each of those years, which is not surprising. If we don't, keep up with inflation, at least we see revenue deficiencies. But this is kind of the baseline of where we're starting in terms of looking at potential rate adjustments. Next slide, please. So part of this was also the piece of, are we getting revenue from the right people? Is our rate structure easy to understand? Is it easy to administer? Can any improvements be made on that side? And so things that we looked at for water included eliminating the summer and winter water use rates and reducing the number of tiers. So in some ways, I look at it as a simplification, even though there will be now, we're recommending 2 rate structures, one for residential users, essentially, and then another for residential, commercial, and industrial users, and then some additional rates that are specific to certain types of users, and I will talk about those here. Next slide, please. So what we're recommending is that you continue your fixed charge for water. So you currently have a tiered structure that increases based on increasing meter size. And so that is in accordance with the American Water Works Association's recommendations. So we strongly advocate that you retain that. It's very defendable. We are suggesting that you increase that by, on a percentage basis, what would look like a very large percentage. But we're talking about, for a 5/8 inch meter now, changing from $3.75 a month to $7.80 a month. So, it's definitely a noticeable increase, but it is, dollars rather than tens of dollars. And from there, you would scale that $7.80 up in accordance with meter size. And so you can see on the larger meter sizes, some of those changes get quite significant. So we provided a table also that gives you an idea of how many accounts you have by meter size. And so on the high end, there are few accounts. And so we recommend that you, have a discussion with those users specifically about this change, the reason for the change, so they are not surprised when it comes through. Next slide, please. I think on the volumetric side, like as mentioned previously, we are suggesting that you go away from I believe it was a 5-tier structure, and just focus on residential, commercial, and industrial users. Pare that down to 3 tiers. One price for the first 2,000 gallons, another a little bit higher price for the next 4, and then over that would be for the balance. And what we saw in the residential water use is that very little water was hitting the upper tier. Almost all of it was coming in the first 3 tiers, and so it was overly complicating the rate structure for those types of users. And so this slide then shows a comparison of how what the current winter summer rates were for each of those and the recommended rates for 2025, which would be for that first tier of water use. It would be $3.07 per 1,000 gallons. At the second tier would be $3.69, challenging my eyes here, and $4.43 for that third tier. So, and by spacing those, putting a differential, you see in the last column, we put a 1.2 differential. That means the price for tier 2 is 1.2 times the price for tier 1. By playing with that, we're able to keep that lowest tier water rate as low as possible to address fixed income and affordability types of issues. Next slide, please. Okay, for multiple dwellings, we suggested a similar inclining block tier, but only with 2 tiers. Yes, currently you have that. You have the first 2,000, or you have up to 6,000, and then over 6,000, I believe. And what we're suggesting that you go with now is the first 2,000 gallons being priced the same as for the single-family residential, and then just a second tier above that for water use above 2,000 gallons for the multiple dwelling units. For UMC, large commercial, and American Crystal Sugar. So what was happening with those users is their flow was hitting those top tiers because it was inclining, and then declining, I believe. And so most of their water use was happening in the top tier anyway. So the inclining block was really not having much of an impact. So we recommend that you just simplify that and charge one constant block rate for all of their water use for those entities. And so you can see for UMC and large commercial meters, and those are the 10-inch, 8-inch meters, I believe. We're suggesting a rate of $3.71 per 1,000 gallons. And for American Crystal Sugar, which is outside of city limits, a bit higher, or 2 times that rate essentially at $6.23. I think I need new glasses. So next slide, please. Okay, and so what will this do? So these, anytime you increase the rates, it impacts people. But it sometimes can help to put it in perspective a little bit in terms of others in the region. And so this chart shows in the red box where you're currently at in 2024 as compared to others in the region. And in 2025, if the rates that we just went through were adopted, that would bump you down on the chart a little bit to $29.70 a month for a 6,000 gallon bill. So still in a favorable position relative to your neighbors. An increase for sure for your users, but I think there are a lot of good talking points that we can help develop to help talk through this.
So if I'm looking at this correct, we're currently like 25, and our 2 closest neighbors would be East Grand and Thief River, and they're at like 60.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's somewhat difficult to compare because everyone is dealing with different source water, but it is helpful to know what others pay in other communities. So. All right, next slide, please. And then this is just a snapshot then of total revenue adequacy through the period with the projected rate adjustments on the bottom. And so in 2025, we're recommending some structural changes to the structure. And then beyond that, looking at inflationary type of increases each year, given the current assumptions that should work for you. Again, the caveat being, when the CIP information comes back, if the timing is different, if the values are significantly different, it'll be something to reevaluate. But as part of this project, you will be having the model that we developed, and so you'll have the ability to go in there each year and take a look at this and see, are we on track? This changed, that changed. What do we need to do for rate adjustments? All right, next slide, please. This then illustrates Over the period, you know, I mentioned, we wanna have revenue exceeding revenue requirements in order to achieve full cost pricing. The blue is the revenue, the green is revenue requirements. You can see we're starting off, where we're about even, but as we go forward, then the blue consistently exceeds, the green, except for the year when there's a intentional spend down of reserves, in the middle there for some capital projects. So next slide, please. And then this is a snapshot of projected cash balances over the period. So we talked about operating reserve target, and that's the line you see there. The blue line shows operating reserves meeting the 45% of the annual budget, and then funds in excess of that would be capital reserves that you could use to help stabilize rates going forward and infuse into the CIP as necessary. Next slide, please. Okay, wastewater, we can move on. This again is wastewater revenue requirements, again showing O&M increasing by 3% per year, the CIP as shown in that graphic earlier, and then again showing if we march forward at existing rates, we would have a deficit through the period. Next slide, please. Okay, this is existing wastewater rates, and we see the fixed charge is fairly small right now. And the volumetric charge varies based on user class. And in the summer, with the winter and summer, again, the summer gets a little bit complicated with the tiers. So one suggestion we're also making is that you move from billing sewer based on all water use to bill on the winter average. Then you don't have to worry in the summer about water, what to charge for water that is going on the lawn as opposed to down the drain. So we feel you can simplify that again by eliminating the winter and the summer charges and coming up with a constant block rate to be used year round. And another thing that was developed out of this was a rate for American Crystal Sugar, who you will be billing for wastewater moving forward. Next slide, please. So again, similar to water, we evaluated some administrative types of costs and came up with a fixed charge recommendation for you. Currently it's $3. It calculated out on a cost of service basis to about $5.26. So we're recommending that you change that in 2025 to be $6 for users within the city and $12 for anyone outside the city. Next slide, please. On the volumetrics side, again, recommending a simplified constant block structure without the summer and winter rates, and then charging a rate for residential, a similar rate for the same rate for residential, commercial, and industrial, doubling that for users out of the city per your policy. A rate for UMC that is based on their actual estimated cost on the system, and then a rate for American Crystal Sugar that is double that inside city rates. And all of this would be assuming that you charge all users on the system based on their winter quarter monthly average. Next slide, please. Here again is a regional comparison showing where you are today in the red box and where you would move down in the chart. And this is again for a 6,000 gallon bill. So again, a very favorable position in the chart. Still, quite a bit less than others in the region. Next slide, please. This is, again, the projected revenue adequacy through 2029. And so again, once we do the structural changes to the rate structure in 2025, from there, the volumetric rate, we're projecting you could increase at an inflationary amount moving forward. For the monthly fixed charge, we are recommending that for the next 2 years, you add another $1 onto that, just to bring that up to kind of a consistent level with others in the region. In addition, it's often favorable to rating agencies like to see fixed revenue equate to about 20 to 30% of your total revenue, just as an indicator of revenue stability for the system. And so those steps would help get you there. Next slide, please. And this is a summary then of the projected revenues in blue, revenue requirements in green, again showing as we move forward, the revenues consistently exceed the green revenue requirements, spending down some cash in this first year on capital, but then stabilizing your financial position moving forward. And next slide, please. This should be the cash balances. Again, so showing, we're starting a little bit from behind in terms of projected cash balance, but, that's okay, if you have a plan to get there. And we even say that, as you go forward, there might be years where you do dip below target. If you do that intentionally as part of a, thought out plan, it's okay, that's what reserves are for. But we definitely want to get you to a position where you're consistently exceeding the operating target, and having a healthy, capital reserve. And again, that's all tied to, what you are generating in revenue associated with the capital related revenue requirements. Next slide, please. And here's an overall regional comparison. So this is water, wastewater, and sewer bill. Again, you're in the red box there and showing that you would move down just a few spots in 2025 with these recommended rate changes. Again, significant to the residents. Any change in rate is it's not a small thing, but a very responsible move, I think, for the city to implement these recommendations. And next, okay. That's it, and I believe at the end, and you should all have this presentation, I believe we did have is there another slide? Yeah, there's some examples of monthly water bill impacts at various water usage volumes just for your review. And in addition, as you move forward, if there are any specific accounts that you would like to have us develop a comparison for, just have Brandon let me know about that, and we can help with that. So that's all I had to present. If there's any questions, I will gladly take those.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay, this brings us to the agenda. Does anyone wish to add anything to tonight's agenda?
Your Honor, under the regular agenda, if we can remove item 8.02, a resolution appointing Matthew Bussinger as the Information Technology Director for the City of Crookston. The candidate has withdrawn.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Henry. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Wendy. Discussion? Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Alt,
Aye.
Menard,
Aye.
Hivma,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. This brings us to the consent agenda. Does anyone wish to remove anything from tonight's consent agenda? I have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Morgan. Roll call, please.
Alt,
Aye.
Menard,
Aye.
Hivma,
Aye.
Jurdy,
Aye.
Fisher,
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right, we have a couple public hearings. Ashley, please.
Yes, Your Honor. 7.01 is a public hearing for the public comment regarding the Housing Trust Fund ordinance.
Thank you. I'll open this public hearing. Does anyone wish to address council? Please come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please. Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing.
7.02 is a public hearing for public comment regarding amending the City of Crookston's Code 30.02 B and C.
Thank you. I'll open this public hearing. Does anyone wish to address council? Please come to the podium, state your first and last name and address, please. Jeff, could you just give us an overview of this code 30-02 B and C by any
Yes.
chance?
Yes, Your Honor. Previously, our city code was very prescriptive in identifying a precise order of events for our city council agendas. Staff and I have come across recently situations where following that order precisely would cause great disruption in the proceedings of the meeting. As an example, if we needed to go into closed session for any real estate purchases or debates, deliberations, it would require city council department head, or city department heads to remain waiting for us to finish that prior to giving their reports. And this is just one example. What this would do, we do still want to follow, we still will be following state statute. We still will be following Robert's rules. It just gives us flexibility to move items earlier or later. As an example, I have a request for tonight's workshop for a particular department to go first. If we have a speaker on the agenda that is time sensitive, we can then move that around to accommodate. Our current ordinance is very prescriptive and specific and requires exactly how it is written in the ordinance. This simply simplifies that ordinance.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to address council in the public hearing? Hearing none, I'll close this public hearing. Go ahead.
Item 8.01 is a resolution regarding purchasing of a fire response vehicle for the Crookston Fire Department with reserve funds.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve this
So moved,
resolution?
Your Honor.
Thank
Second,
you,
Your Honor.
Tim and Don. Discussion.
Yes, Mayor and members of council, this is a request by the fire chief. They've identified a need within the department. They do have the funds available within the reserve accounts. The cost for the vehicle, hello, chief. The cost for the vehicle would be roughly $58,000, $48,000 for the vehicle and $10,000 for outfitting. And chief is here to answer any questions y'all may have.
So upgrade, replacement, or
Say it again?
is it an upgrade to a newer vehicle, or replacement, or?
Yeah, it's on our replacement plan, so it came up and it actually should have been done in 23. And that was my first year, that was not a task that I was able to undertake at that time. We delegated that to staff, they took it, they ran, they got their state bids, we got our comparables. They gave me the quotes on what they wanted for this response vehicle. So this is the one that they take with them. If we're not taking a fire engine with us, they're taking this pickup. You know, so it's all in their gear, they get there. So yeah, it's an upgrade. So it'd be a new vehicle to replace the current one that we have. And the current one that we have would then be repurposed with the park department.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion? Hearing none, can I have roll call, please?
Alt. Aye. Menard.
Aye.
Emma. Aye. Jody.
Aye.
Fisher.
Aye.
Cavalier.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. And that pretty much does it. Moving on to our reports. Jeff, please.
Yes, Mayor, members of the council, you have my written report. In addition, I would just like to identify, I have had a few residents reach out relating to a sewer backup we had from the lift station a few weeks back. I believe, and I've spoken with, again, a couple of residents have also spoken with Brandon and the League Insurance Trust Adjuster or Claims Manager. I believe some residents are mistakenly under the impression that these claims have been denied. They have not. No action has been taken at this point. What has been sent out is a standard letter that identifies that the claim has been received, that it is under review, and with an update on preliminary information, with a recommendation that they file with their homeowners' policies as part of a standard practice. Again, Mark, our adjuster, I have spoken with him today. He has made no determinations as of yet. However, We will be updating council as that moves forward. Brandon and I will be providing him with more information as we move forward, or as this progresses. And we've already identified the other item that I had with the IT director position.
Okay,
Jeff, can I just clarify really quickly? Do we have a timeline? Because I know that a lot of the residents have been really concerned about like just what the timeline looks like going forward. Do we have like an idea of when they would have an answer?
I will be speaking with Mark again tomorrow. After I speak with Brandon, I can forward that to you after I speak with Mark.
I'd appreciate that. Thank you.
okay, is that it, Jeff?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Shane, anything to report?
Yeah, last week I was at our AMEM conference, it's the Association of Minnesota Emergency Managers. Great conference, great speakers. One thing I did get to do was meet up with some of the emergency management staff from Mankato. And Brandon, was it Rural Water that came and grabbed those pumps? So long story short, Brandon had kind of coordinated, we sent some of our trash pumps down there. And when I met with these guys, they actually said thank you. They're like, they came from Crookston. Yeah, they did. So for us to send stuff from way up here all the way down south while they were having their flooding issues was fantastic. So it was good. With that, our staff just got those back and we've got them up, cleaned up, ready to go. So those are ready. Hopefully don't need them anytime soon. The guys have been busy. They've got school visits set up for Fire Prevention Week. That's gonna be a big deal, so we've got all that signed up. They're trying to build with it every year, so that's working out well. Our trucks go through a kind of pre-inspection. We have annual testing coming up for the pumps and the functions. And we try to take care of some of that beforehand. So guys are testing, vacuum seal on a pump to make sure anything that's leaking we can fix. So that's being done right now. Ladder 3 passed its ladder test, which I don't know if you remember, but last year was kind of a headache. It was probably out of service for 7 weeks because we had to get the pump in to get everything else rebuilt and reorchestrated. Long story short, that passed this year, so we're good. Then they've been doing a bunch of odds and ends around the station, working on foundation and keeping the yard look neat and just getting things ready for winter. So I don't want to skip too far past fall, but winter's gonna be here soon enough, so that's what they're busy with, so, thank you.
Thank you. Brandon, anything?
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Greg?
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Jake?
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. He's not here. Darren?
No report, Your Honor.
He's gone. Chuck, anything?
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Holly, you have anything to add?
Yep. Just want to give a quick update on the audit. We should have the audit opinion and letter by Wednesday or Thursday of this week. And once we have that, we'll get it uploaded and submitted to the state, so they'll have it by our September 30th deadline. And then we plan to do a presentation to the council at a future meeting, so we can go over and review the audit. And then regarding the accountant position, we did 2 interviews Friday. We have 1 more tomorrow. And then our HR coordinator should be starting on Monday, the 30th. So.
Great. Thanks, Holly.
Sally.
Lance, anything to add tonight?
Nothing to add, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Christie, you have anything?
Sorry, I was trying to find the unmute button. No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Tim?
No report.
All right, thanks. Wendy?
No report, Your Honor.
Thank you. Don?
Yeah, I'd like to have the B&A retirement from the University of Minnesota Crookston campus. I'd like to have the students stand up and tell us your name and where you're from and what your major is. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Four? Who's gonna go first?
You're okay, or?
At the podium. so
Podium, please.
we can hear you.
That'll teach you all to stay till the end.
My name is David Mashoff. I'm from 50 Lakes, Minnesota, and I'm a natural resources and horticulture student.
Thank you.
My name is Louis Siegel. I'm an accounting major from Anoka, Minnesota.
Very good.
I'm Zach Anderson. I'm from Farmington, Minnesota, south of the cities, and I'm an exercise science and wellness major.
My name's Cody Wolf. I'm from Wadena, Minnesota, and I am a natural resources law enforcement major with a minor in criminal justice.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good.
Sweet. They're all from far away. They come to Crookston. It's wonderful.
And one of them's an accounting major, Holly.
Get your information for later, right?
Henry, anything tonight?
Nothing for me, Your Honor.
Thank you. Morgan?
On September 10th, Carrie had put together a group, the Masonic Institute for the Developing Brain came up to Crookston and met with us. I was there, there was people from Riverview that were there, the school board, early childhood education group. I know I'm missing, there was a lot of people from the community that was there, and we were discussing daycare needs, other needs for families and children in the area, and how the Institute can help us here as a community kind of grow and come up with plans on that. So it was kind of a really cool meeting. It was about 3-4 hours long. But I got a lot, and it was really good to see so many different groups within our community coming together and sharing their goals, and all of us seeing that a lot of us are looking for the same stuff, so.
Great. Thank you.
And that is it.
Just a couple things. I see the city of Crookston, we awarded some economic development for Greater Minnesota from deed. So the city of Crookston got $1,198,000, and it goes to rehabbing 16 owner-occupied housing units, 3 mixed-use rental housing units, and 13 commercial buildings. So that was great news. Also this Thursday, I think the weather's gonna be great. I think it's that Northern Canoe. It's like a 10-person canoe. I think they're gonna have 2 of them down in Central Park. So, encourage, they were here a few years ago. I think it was the same outfit. It was a great turnout, and they take people up the river a ways and come back down. It was a great turnout. Hopefully we have a great turnout again. So if the weather's nice, I think they're having food vendor down there too, maybe?
Yes.
So you got anything to add to that, Michelle? Please. I deleted the email. I kept the information.
It's all right. It's another collaboration with Jolt and Jive and Empowering Crookston. 4:30 to 7:30 Central Park. There is a food truck that's going to be down there. There'll be some music, so come on down. These are free rides, literally. And there also will be some kayaks available if people wish to hop in one on their own. So we would love to see all of the council members there.
Then Ross
Hire, that's why I was tardy this evening. Yes, if you have an opportunity to go to the university and be ballroom, Ross Hire, a local retired naturalist and also natural resource expert who is also an artist, has a large gallery on display. If you make it in 5 minutes, you could maybe have some snacks. But that's going to go all week through Thursday. So if you haven't had a chance to get up there today, please stop by for the next few days this week. It is a wonderful display, and he's a very talented artist, and as we have many in the community, but nonetheless.
Is it up in Bede, Michelle?
Yes, Bede Ballroom and Park and A-Lot.
There's time, or is it?
It's available. You can go up there anytime right now. They had a reception from 5 until 6:30 this evening, but it's available during the day too. So if you pop up over lunch, or if you want to pop up in the evening, the Student Center doesn't close until 8 p.m. or 8:30 p.m. most doors, but check it out.
All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, just a reminder, there will be a Ways and Means budget meeting tonight. So nothing come before council. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Yes. Yes.
thank Chris, the library director, for the submitted budget. The overview of the library budget is the total library request is down 10% from 2024. The primary driver on that reduction is a reduced capital request, and operating expenses are essentially flat with previous years, with only a 2% inflationary adjustment and other contractual adjustments with the annual fee. With that, I will turn it over to Chris for the council to have if the council has any questions. Total library expense, $242,000, with the total revenue, I apologize, I'm looking at the wrong column, I think. Yeah, that's the wrong column.
373.
I might have, let me check my actual spreadsheet, those maybe. Let's see.
I guess I would just ask if council needs an update as well on work that's been completed at the library.
Sure.
We've been busy, continuing to make improvements that we started a couple of years ago. All of the exterior lighting is now complete. All of the new sidewalks that were before flooding every spring, they were done as of last year. We have 2 new handicap spaces with new signage. The emergency exit sidewalks in the rear of the building, talked at length about that with Jake and Scott. But we agreed, Corky and I, because we were doing the last 2 poles, and we had a need for sod, which is actually was started today. We're not replacing all of it, but we are replacing the front lawn of the library, and due to the extensive concrete work that was done a year ago, and a lot of wear and tear over the years with some of the machines, that it was recommended rather than seed it, that we sod it. So that's going in as we speak this week. And I think that the only other items that we'll be having to address in the future continue to be the HVAC, the rest of the roof, the entrance windows and doors, and some signage, as well as that emergency exit that will need to be addressed. But we're checking things off the list with each passing year. So we're in pretty good shape.
Yes, and now I can speak, I was reading the wrong line, not the wrong column. The community share for the operating expense under our contract is $242,000. The total expenditures for the library expense is $373,000. $75,000 of that is capital requests, as mentioned by Chris just moments ago. And again, that is a 10% reduction from 2024 budget.
So with the HVAC and windows and whatever else, that in capital improvements for next year or the year over the next couple of years, or?
Yeah, my understanding is that the last time I spoke with, keeping in mind that some of the names and faces have changed, when I had last spoken with Audrey, we were putting money away for the rest of the roof, for the, certainly the entrance windows and doors, the emergency exit sidewalks, and I know that some of that had to get shuffled around a little bit this year with the completion of the lighting, and then the trenching for the electricity for the lighting. But I haven't seen the final, Jeff and I, when we spoke, I'm not sure exactly what's going into those lines. We did talk about the possibility of trying to get state funding. I know my executive director, Liz Lynch, and I have spoken numerous times about trying to get some of the bonding money, the matching funds, to finish these future projects with the city.
So I take it, the roof would be priority.
Yes.
One on the list.
Yes, and we can keep, I think we can continue to maintain the current HVAC in its current state. We've been assured by Grove Mechanical that we can do that, but certainly at some point, it may not become, cost effective to do that. So, yeah, I would think the roof would be the highest priority.
And that's all in the capital improvement?
No, like I said, the HVAC needs to be done yet. It's original to the building, and we will celebrate our 40th anniversary next month in this building.
We're gonna have a party, right?
We're gonna have a party. We're gonna have an open house, I believe kind of a cake and coffee kind of thing, towards the end of October. And yes, there's some new signage needed. We have our original signage. So there still are needs.
Did you look into the grant that's available through the EDA for storefront improvements and such?
And the signage, yeah,
And
that,
signage?
We have not.
That'd be a good idea.
reach out to,
Carrie,
Or
I think it's Taylor,
Taylor?
yeah, cause she's the one that, yeah.
Or Jennifer, maybe?
I think it's Jennifer, yes.
Jennifer.
Either reach out to just the EDA, and there's a form that you fill out.
And we have received a grant from American Crystal, and a $5,000 that it has been earmarked as well for signage, so
good.
every little bit helps.
It'd be nice to get one of those digital.
Digital, yeah, that was my wish list, pipe dream request. We did get, we got numbers on that, and with electricity and everything, it would have been about 57,000. So I decided to put that on the back burner and go with something a little more simple. And I have spoken with actually Chuck, about getting the old signage taken out completely because it's in pretty bad shape and it's actually on the Carnegie lot. So we'd like to get that removed because it confuses people. It doesn't have our current hours on it and it's not worth redoing. It's pretty rough.
I looked it up, it's Jennifer over there.
Jennifer, okay. Yep, I can do that. So, new windows have been fantastic. I can't believe we're not experiencing some savings there, as we did in the last handful of years with the new LED lighting. Since that's been put in, I know they've been way more efficient. We're spending a whole lot less on building and maintenance and repairs because we were replacing and fixing ballasts every time we turned around before we redid the lights.
Any other questions for Chris? Oh. All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Good job, Chris.
Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next department, council members, is the single page that you have in front of you. It's the community development department. Carrie is in Minneapolis. However, I can go over the totals. The community development request is an increase of 20.3% over the previous year. The primary drivers on this increase is a request for an additional staff member at 70,000. Request for increase in training and travel from 7,000 to 15,000. Our current year to date is 5,000. And an $80,000 request for marketing. It is on the sheet that you have as other improvements. It was originally identified as a roof. On speaking with Carrie this afternoon, she had identified that that was a marketing request. So I've moved that from the capital to line up a couple of line items to printing and advertising as that's the closest line item that we have for marketing. Again, this is a 20% increase for the department. I have moved Keenan from general, I don't know where his salary was budgeted in previous years. However, the logic in my mind is a marketing coordinator should be in economic development. So I have included in that $297,000 for salaries, that does include Keenan's salary. But it also does include $70,000 for an additional staff member. And so I would ask council direction. Again, those are the primary drivers, and that would be about $158,000 in increase based on those three primary drivers.
Question on the marketing budget there. Is that on top of the budget that we'd be allocating to Keenan for marketing? Is that what that budget would be?
That would be what that budget would be because Keenan does not have his own department.
Okay, so then my question is what chunk of that is coming from the tourism tax?
I cannot speak to that. I have not received the breakdown. I have what Keenan had sent me approximately 3 weeks ago. And I have a phone call with Carrie today identifying to move that 80,000 over. I know that they have spoken to each other. I don't know the arrangement they've come to as that breakdown.
Okay, so that 80,000 is just kind of us moving it from wherever it was to wherever it needs to here.
Right now, it is moving it from, part of it is moving from capital. It was previously labeled as a roof. That's the 80,000, it's a direct move. However, it is partially composed of what Keenan previously had versus, and includes what Carrie had in her request.
Okay.
Again, I can't speak to how they've discussed to split those funds between their different functions.
On that additional staff member, do we have a job description and job duties?
I do not. It was identified to me that the general thought process on that staff member would be grant management and maintenance, which is currently outsourced to Tri-Valley.
I just gotta ask about that 80,000 for improvements. It was kinda talking about the Valley Park roof. Is that roof in tough shape or?
I cannot speak. I know that it was budgeted previously. However, it was not utilized, the previous budget was not utilized, in the current budget, it was not utilized for the roof. It was utilized for other items. I believe that some repairs were made to the roof, and it was deemed that those would be adequate for the current period.
Okay.
How many employees do they have right now?
Currently, as is the current organization, Carrie is the department head. We have Taylor as an admin, and Keenan would be the marketing coordinator.
Where does Jennifer fall in? Is she under housing?
Jennifer is under housing.
And Teresa is under housing.
And Teresa is also under housing.
So we're anticipating being very fortunate to receive some buckets of money.
That would be the anticipation, and I will defer to Lance at this point. He and I and Holly have been working on some of our reserves, and right now we are unsure of our ability to make match on many grants that may be available based on our cash policy.
Mm-hmm. But the 1.198 million that we got from small city grants, so that's going to require somebody to monitor the grant, to look at rebates, to really do a lot of follow-up, and that sounds like that's an important occupation.
Yes, that 1.198 million grant, we are currently in discussions with Tri-Valley and an outside contractor who specializes. The state allows 15% of the grant to be utilized for administrative costs. And this contractor would take their fee from that 15% and do all of the grant administration and management without the need to add a new staff member.
Could that 15% go towards paying that new staff member if they were, let's say, under contract or?
It could, but it would also involve us additional tracking mechanisms for the city to ensure that we are in compliance with the grant. It would increase the workload on that person.
What are we currently paying outside sources to do our grants and grant management?
Let me do some math real fast.
Because that's just one grant. If you put another grant on top of that, what does that end up being?
Have they not been going to get grants the whole time? They have, right?
Yeah.
Without the need for an additional staff person?
The grants that have been applied for have not been successful, except for this small cities
Because
grant.
they've not been well-written, or there's a lack of follow-up, or?
Something in competitiveness, yeah.
Chuck, can you check the connection for Councilmember Jurdy?
Yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
Okay. So in the meantime, Lance, do you have your crystal ball? Well, so Jeff was referring to, the potentials for, the city to be successful, the EDA to be successful in some of the grant opportunities. Your thoughts?
Yeah, you gotta come to the podium, please. Thank you.
I guess to the table.
For the table.
You can be comfortable sitting at the table.
Currently, and we're still trying to catch the numbers up for 2024, but at the end of 2023 with the audited numbers, in your governmental funds, that's consists of your general fund and several of the other, operating funds for the city. The unassigned, what we consider the unassigned fund balance, kind of that portion that you have available to utilize however you choose. At the end of 2023 was about 1.1 million. So there's, $12 million in cash, but you have things that are designated for other purposes and things like that. So it's tying up a lot of that cash for other purposes. So the actual free balances you have is about 1.1 million.
And as a reminder to the council, since the end of '23, just prior to my arrival, this council did designate 3.3 million as a match for the spur and 1.65 million for the Red River project. Part of that spur and the Red River project is anticipated to be covered with TIF bonds. However, in light of the dollar amounts that we're talking about, we are extremely close to our available match fund.
And just as a reminder to the city's policies to keep about 45% available, to keep.
45% of that 12 million.
Of your 45% of your yearly expenditures in the general fund.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Which
Close to
last year was, let's see, about 7.1 million, so.
So
things
that 12 million that's not enterprise funds either, is it?
It does include the enterprise fund, so some of it, yes. Yeah, that is the total balance for the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So those are restricted funds.
Some of them are,
Correct,
yes.
some of them.
Yeah, some of them are.
So basically with that spur though, if we get the grant, we're on the hook for 3.3 million or what, wasn't it?
It's roughly 3.3 million is the city share, however, there's a $2 million state match funds grant available that Kerry has applied for.
And then the Red River, what'd you say was?
Red River Valley was 1.65 million. And a portion of that, if I remember correctly from the financial advisors, based on the commitments that we currently have, we can bond approximately 750 to 780,000 of that 1.65 that can be paid back through a TIF district. If we get more commitments for the additional parcels in that process, we can bond for an additional amount. If we fill all of the parcels on what would normally be considered compatible sources or compatible uses, it would be anticipated that we could bond that entire match.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have a bond rating?
Not that I am aware of. We have not bonded in some time.
Okay, so you don't get a bond rating until you've bonded.
Correct. When, that would involve an S&P call with management. Lance, myself, and Holly would be involved. They would go over our processes, our procedures, and make a and our cash histories. The determination of council's willingness to increase revenues based on need. As an example, an enterprise fund such as water, sewer, if we were to bond to replace, one of the factors they would consider is the council willing to raise water and sewer rates to accommodate the cost of this bond?
Right, Miranda alluded to that in her presentation.
And what is the capacity of the water and sewer rate that can be dedicated to that? And they would work with a percentage based on the percentage of the projects that would be dedicated to each of those departments.
But also Ellers could walk us through this too, right, as far as,
yes,
you know, where the council would be comfortable as far as bonding. They would kinda walk us through it.
That would be a very good suggestion. That way they are very well versed in what current rates are and what a 20-year bond payment would be. I can spitball those amounts, but it would be a spitball. I would probably be about anywhere from 5 to 15% off on the payment guess.
Yeah, I think when this if all comes together, I mean, we gotta involve Ellers and kinda walk us through and what council's comfortable bonding for. And remember, that's gotta go to the voters too, right?
General revenue bond is not, from my understanding, unless our charter speaks otherwise, does not normally need to go to the voters. Unless it exceeds certain thresholds, which at this point, we have no debt, so we would not be exceeding any thresholds.
Okay.
So what do you think, should we keep this, this FTE in the budget for now, and then as we get, because we can always cut back once we do the truth and taxation letter that goes out, right?
We can. I have a list of items that I keep that are increases over previous years. And then as we move through the process moving forward, I will distribute those and we can prioritize from the council's need. This is, again, the preliminary. So yes, we can, this is a not to exceed, so if we remove it, it is removed.
I would say, I would like to see a job description for what this person does and also what the job description is for Taylor, right? Like what is those job, like what are these people? I know what Taylor does, but I'm saying like, what is this person gonna do that Taylor's not able to do? I'm not saying that Taylor can do it all, or the person that, but I think if we're asking for a person, we also need a job description.
So we have $1.1 million from which we could reallocate some in order to buy down a levy.
At this point, sir, we do not have 1.1 million. That was the end of '23.
Okay.
23.
So we might have more.
It's possible, yes.
It is possible, however, not likely.
Creepers. Okay.
So do we leave it in there and also take Morgan's recommendation about seeing what job description would be?
Yes, I have a note here to evaluate job descriptions for the anticipated positions within the department.
I guess job responsibilities would probably be the.
So you're talking about having Kean fill some of this, or? I mean, can we?
Keenan's position has never been completely fleshed out, from my understanding. He and I have had several conversations relating to his duties, his responsibilities. He has done an excellent job in maintaining communications with residents, with events, and the goings-on about Crookston. One of the items that I have discussed with him is the possibility, as he moves into more direct work with the EDA in identifying business-to-business opportunities and helping us fill the industrial park, helping us fill some of our downtown development. I think that we have a great opportunity to market our available space and our available amenities to businesses for the area. So I have challenged him with
So we,
that
just so your
shift in tack.
awareness, we did build out a job description and a 30, 60, 90 for him, along with job descriptions. Now, I don't know if that was, delivered and presented to him. I don't know what happened after that, but there were a couple meetings that we did build that all out.
Yeah, 'cause you were.
Yeah.
So when I hired Ken, that was the thing to give him a 30, 60.
Yeah, we built out a 30, 60, 90. We had the job description, we had the responsibilities, expectations. Had a whole budget discussion. Now, I do not know, well, I was not there when this was presented to him, so I do not know.
And that is a document that I have only had tertiary awareness.
Yeah.
So I can discuss that with Keenan and Carrie to move forward.
So, but also, I mean, could he split duties as far as with economic development and also marketing, events, and?
I think it can go into economic development. Again, that's without knowing what without that description of what Carrie wants this person for. I can't speak to if a marketing person can do that. I don't know. It's the lack of information here.
My understanding is that that person would be primarily grant oriented.
So writing and monitoring grants. So currently, we outsource the monitoring of grants, but we don't outsource the grant writing.
Correct.
So is that?
There are some grants that it still make sense to outsource, and I will use the fire department as an example. There are grants for fire trucks that have a 95% match, and those are very specific, and they're very cheap to outsource.
I think John Wynn helped Carrie with the grant for.
I was gonna say, I thought we approved a budget for her to pay someone.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
I can't remember what that was, but, I mean, the amount.
I think it was like 50 grand for,
Could've been 500, I don't know.
okay,
I'm saying like it could've been 500 or 5 million, I don't know.
okay.
I can't remember what, it was about, what, a year ago?
So are we gonna leave it in?
Well, I think, at this point, we almost should.
Let's get some more information from Carrie. She's at a meeting in the cities for more money, so.
I mean, I know Carrie has talked to me about saying that like if we wanna continue going for these grants and that she's gonna need help, so I understand that. But without knowing what that exactly is, like how many hours, like that, and then your question of Keenan, like where is Keenan's focus right now? What has he been doing? What should he be doing? Like it's hard to.
But
Do I support cross structure of helping like people doing other people's jobs? Yes, 100%. I just, without the information, it's hard for me to say.
Right, and I don't know what kind of experience, if Carrie's looking for strictly grant writing, what kind of experience does Keenan have in grant writing? I mean, that takes a knack to.
Right, like I would not put myself into grant writing.
Right,
like-
exactly. So, is it,
I've written 2 and I'm batting 500.
so, I mean, is it cheaper to outsource grant writing? I have no idea. Under professional fees? Or?
In many cases, if a grant is awarded, the cost to write the grant can be expensed through the administrative expenses of the grant. I know the last fire grant that I wrote, we contracted out at a previous city, it was $1,500 for a fire engine. That was the 0 part of my batting 500. You don't get those the first year or 2 that you apply.
Yeah.
They wait usually 5 or 6 to make sure you really, really, really need it. And if you somehow find the money before they grant the grant, then they say, oh, look, we were right, they didn't really, really, really need it. So.
Well, I'm not sure where to go with this. I mean, seems like we're writing a lot of grants. So, I mean, if we up the professional fees to hire someone to write our grants, are we money ahead or?
At this point, my recommendation at this point to council, I do have the guidance to get job descriptions with the positions, responsibilities. As Lance, Holly, and I flesh out our availability of funds, we can work with Carrie to come up with a game plan of what kind of a budget we may have and for matching funds and availabilities so that we can get a realistic idea of what we can pursue in the upcoming year. I think we will have, if we get all of the grants that we currently have out there, I think that will significantly impact our ability to pursue further grants in the upcoming year, just simply for match funds.
Okay. So we just leave it in there for the time being?
So we'll leave it there, but I'll keep, on my master sheet, I'll have it highlighted as having questions and background information required.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, very good.
Thanks, Lance.
Thanks, Lance.
I had fire up next, but Chief just stepped out. Ah, here he is.
You snooze, you lose, you left.
What's the number?
You left, no budget for you.
What's the budget number? Mark, what's the budget number?
For fire?
Yeah. 601?
No, that would be water. Fire is the easy one. It's got a big red line. It's got red all over it. Red for fire.
101, 322.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, please ignore the line items that are red. Those items are identified as belonging to the building department, which formerly was under the same budget. And we moved those line items over to the building department, we just have not made those corrections within the system.
But they're taken out of the bottom line?
Pardon?
You've taken them out of the bottom line?
Out of this department, yes, sir.
Okay.
They've moved over to the building department. The overall fire budget is an increase of 12%. Primary drivers, we do have 15,000 in workers' comp. That increase, let me find the correct line item so that I can speak intelligently. It's on the second page, about 2/3 of the way down, account 0364. That is the mathematical amount going from 37,000 up to just shy of 52,000. The rationale on that increase is we are in union negotiations for a new contract with the police department, I apologize, with the fire department as well as the police department. And so wages and all affiliated items do have an increase. Workers' comp for firefighters is a significant amount. I would challenge many that the danger that they have inherent in their jobs, they run into the burning buildings when all of us are running out.
Why was it so low?
Pardon?
Why was it so low in the actual?
For the previous years.
Part of that could be a
The
factor.
2023 actual, there was an accrual method that was in place. I spoke with Kathy previous. What was happening is insurance rates were being allocated to a 700 fund and then accrued monthly back to their appropriate departments. And in 2023, when Kathy left the city, those monthly accruals ceased to occur. So the $2,800 in 2023 is obviously nowhere close to accurate. The 34,000 in 2022 is an actual. We had 36,800 budgeted for last year. The 56,600 is the manual premium coming into this year without any experience factor adjustments. We do have one employee that has been out on long-term workers' comp that is not from the fire department, but from another department. He's been out for about 1.5 years, if I remember correctly, 2 years on workers' comp. That will be coming to an end within the next 10 days. However, that will impact our experience factor, and we will not know that experience factor until November from the League Insurance Trust. As a result, I am budgeting at the manual rate, which is without any discount. We will know in November whether or not that will be coming down. Again, another primary driver within fire, equipment repairs has increased 13,000, hydro testing and truck pump certifications. Para calculated based on wages, again for firefighters at 17.7% of wages, just as is police. General wages, it's a $35,000 increase based on a rough estimate from initial conversations. And overtime wages, a driver of $8,000 increase. That is a correction from previous budgets based on trend analysis. If you look on the front page, on the bottom section, the second line, overtime. In 22, we averaged 34,000. In 23, we had 37,000 in overtime. Last year, there was only 27,000 budgeted. And we are currently at 33,500. So that 33.5 is generally in alignment with previous years, and the trend analysis says that we should be roughly 35%. I believe 27,000 budgeted last year was not in line with the trend analysis for that line item, so we made that correction. And that is a consideration in the increase for the department overall. Those are the highlights. Chief Helfstead is available for any specific questions you may have on the department.
So for the equipment, have we tried to apply for any grants?
That's something we haven't tried for, we're still outstanding on one for some auto electrification equipment. It'd be the same thing like those hoods that we had just were awarded. Same type of deal, just haven't been successful yet. There are larger grants out there that are gonna take a little bit more legwork. Those will be ones that starting now, hopefully in 25, I can dedicate a little bit of time to.
And
So,
on those
but-
two, I'm gonna guess that we'd wanna outsource those type of grant writing.
We have people and there's contacts that we can go through to get assistance for that grant writing. There's a couple of different companies that have already reached out for those.
Question also on the CO detectors under public information, is that just another where things were not put in correctly? Cause right there, it looks like we budgeted 3,000, have only spent 600, now we're budgeting 4,000.
And so it's one of those fire prevention week month is coming. You're gonna start to see those expenditures come out. Full-time staff has approached me and they wanna make it, so usually we focus on schools. We're gonna try and hit the general public now, with the sports center, gonna start coming into play. We're gonna try and get advertisements and things out there, so anywhere, the ultimate goal and the way they explained it, and I guess I bought into it, is everywhere you turn, they want fire safety in your face. So this is one of those things where this is allowing us to purchase those fire safety initiatives, whether it's 3D billboard, it's essentially like a 5-foot tall display. So we're trying to get those into high traffic areas, so at the CSC, knowing that that's gonna be coming up with winter and stuff, something here at City Hall, we just wanna get it into high traffic areas, and that's where some of that funding comes from.
got it.
It also helps with supplies for Fire Prevention Week, for the open house, things like that. So we can constantly get this, our focus has been so much on kids. We're gonna try and evolve outside of that, parents, get them engaged, and have people see things like this.
Okay.
And I do know, I guess kind of on to your topic there with, if you look at some of these comparables where we're at right now, and some of these look a little short-sighted, maybe we've overshot on them. Maintenance and all our busy kind of expense time comes this fall.
Got it.
So, I guess as I was kind of annotating earlier, we've got guys that go through and check the pumps. We try to save some money by catching some leaks or catching malfunctions and stuff beforehand. To have a service tech come in, they're gonna tell me, okay, this is wrong. Then they're gonna have to come back because they're gonna wanna fix it. They're gonna wanna fix it, they're gonna wanna retest it again. We try to get ahead of that by having guys go through these trucks, make sure everything's up to snuff. So when they do come to certify these pumps and these trucks, they're gonna pass. So it's kind of a cost savings deal, but these guys spend time doing that. But that cost that comes in with them testing them on an annual basis, that's why you don't see that much out of there right now, because it will come in the fall.
Gotcha.
So in the annual maintenance, does that include like testing our hydrants and making sure that when we, need a hydrant, it's working? Is that part of that? Or
No.
is that in something else?
That's gonna be with the utilities department.
Oh, with utilities?
That's under advisement of our water department.
Okay.
So that's something we'll take direction from Brandon from. They know those things backwards and forwards, and they're great at communicating if there's a hydrant out of service, or if there's something they don't work.
Fire hydrants for fire department.
That's when they flush hydrants, they know, right?
Say that again?
That's when they flush out the hydrants, or?
Yeah, we flush the hydrants every spring,
Okay,
and then dead ends get flushed again in the fall.
okay, cool, thank you.
Serves a dual purpose. We know we know that the hydrant works, and it helps keep stagnant water out of our dead ends and loops, and flushes all the sand and all that out.
Good.
And just follow up on that, like annual maintenance was a line item. It looks like it's still a line item in here, but we've eliminated that amount. So when you see equipment maintenance and you see that number being high, we've taken things like hose replacement, annual maintenance. We've taken those and we've condensed them. Instead of having a certain line item for hose or a certain line item for specific annual maintenance, we've kind of grouped it under equipment maintenance. So it was just to try to eliminate a couple of these specific line items that essentially you would be forced to utilize. If I put it under that maintenance, where it should fall anyway, I guess. And I'm still trying to get like true readings on these lines, so.
Any other questions for Shane?
Good. Thank you, Shane.
Do you want me to follow up with any of that capital improvement stuff?
Pardon?
Is there any explanations that they want? Or the teams would want?
10K
'Cause
radio,
I-
turnout gear,
Say that again?
is that part 10K radio, turnout gear?
That's where that's at, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably gonna be where a lot of my larger asks are from. We had started, trying to put that money away for radios, just they're not getting any cheaper. Turnout gear is the same thing. And then when you see the 81 for the air compressor, that was brought up last year. And I hadn't budgeted for it, but I had pitched to the council to see if it would be feasible if I was able to get a new compressor and still have trade-in value on the current one that we're operating. And with that, I did proceed just to keep looking to see if that was gonna be a viable option. And I've actually found one that might be a little cheaper than what this budget is reflecting at this point in time. So with the trade-in on that, we can get a compressor, a new compressor that's gonna fill the SCBA bottles. So it's not just a regular air compressor, it filters out everything so you got the pure air to breathe. With that, it's also gonna be a quieter model. The one that we have now at the station, the guys actually have to put earmuffs on, because the compressor's attached right to it and it's loud. So we can get one now that'll do the same quantity, same quality, it's just gonna be a quieter version. So you can actually talk and be able to hear yourself while this compressor runs. It's just a different version of it, but we've been in contact and we've had a number, that's come in lower than 81, so I'm really hoping that I can pursue that.
Okay.
Okay, if that's, do we have any other questions for Shane?
Okay, all right.
Chuck?
Thank you, Shane.
Thank you, Shane.
Next up, I believe we have Public Works and Streets. Chuck?
All right.
That 101-42-600?
It is, yes, sir. It has a single red line across the bottom third of the page. and it starts with 101. If you're starting with 601 or 602, those are the wrong lines.
Next one.
The current operating request for streets, you will notice that we have not allocated the wages out from these departments yet to all of the various sub-funds. That also inherently creates a little bit of room for us within the workers' comp, because we calculated those at the highest workers' comp rate for the department. The operating request is roughly a reduction of 150,000. And the primary driver of that is a reduction in central garage expense of 163,000 based on the trends that we have available to us. Obviously, that 163 is higher than the overall reduction, so that we do have increases in other lines. An additional driver in the reduction is a reduction of professional fees, which we're reallocating as part of the inherent costs of some of our capital projects, streets and water. As we move forward, those will be included in part of those projects. Outside of that, those are the primary drivers that we have. It's about 8 pages. We are available, Chuck, you can present any items that you have, and we are ready for any questions.
So yeah, a lot of my numbers are based off of past years, but I was really relying on Brandon's information for what he budgeted. Just going with that, and it looks like we have some wrenches thrown in where we're gonna have to purchase some larger pieces of equipment. Some of the budgeting was a little lower than expected, and those are what Jeff was talking about, where we're gonna have to raise those numbers.
Yeah, the primary line item is in streets and alleys. In 24, we had 138,000 budgeted for central garage charges, and the history on that was in the 28 to 30,000 range. So we made that adjustment down to 25,000 in the current budget, based on the trends and the anticipated needs. That is listed 1, 2, 3, 4, that's the 5th page. It's highlighted in yellow. The departmental or the line item totals for some of the sub-departments are generally all low, as I mentioned earlier. All of the wages are listed under one sub-department at this point. I did not have available yet. Did not have them at the writing of these pages, but I do have them now, the allocation breakdowns for the different sub-departments. Those will be broken out at future meetings.
So where do we have indicated the new approach to garbage collection?
Yes, yeah.
So I see the garbage bags are still in there.
So I have my own spreadsheet here that I've been working on, and I have estimates of what it would take. Let's say we have 220 participants currently doing the garbages, and half of them move over to bins. I have it broken out. I don't believe we show that on this spreadsheet.
No, we
We
did.
show garbage and refuse collection.
Yep, that doesn't include the bins on this spreadsheet.
So when you're factoring this, you're only factoring the current people that use our garbage system.
The current people, correct.
I think it's gonna be very different because I think a lot of people don't use our current one because it's bags and there's a lot of people that want bins.
Yeah, so I believe it's just a rough estimate. We're roughly at 2,200, or not 2,200, 220 people that are using the services of bags. Yeah, I do anticipate, it kind of blowing up and a lot more people coming on, but it's hard for me to gauge that. We're gonna bring in enough bins, this year to, accommodate half those people. And then in my spreadsheet here, I budgeted for another,
So you're only accommodating for 100 some bins?
that's what we got quoted this time around. It was 250 some bins, but we're giving 2 bins per person, per household.
I don't think that's enough bins.
Correct, but that's what the $40,000 is giving us for this year. So for next year, I'm budgeting for more, to bring in more bins.
Well, isn't this next year's budget?
Yeah.
Where is it?
Where did we put those?
With that, I have some of that information on my spreadsheet here.
Yeah. Because
I see like a little note for it, but no dollar amount.
Right, we didn't plug that into Jeff's
Well,
spreadsheet.
you've got the 40,000 for the arm, for the.
Yep, so the 40,000 gets us the arm plus 250 bins. So if we want to bring in more bins on the first go around.
Chuck, actually, I think the reason that we held off on adding that number to the item is because we have been in negotiation, or not negotiation, we have been in discussion with other service providers as a potential alternative to take over without the city having to purchase.
So here's just my thoughts.
Yeah.
Y'all can shoot it down and say that's dumb. Won't be offended.
No dumb thoughts.
Yeah.
No dumb.
I say I get 1 in every 6 is a good idea. Budget?
Yes.
For more bins,
Yep.
like a significant amount of bins.
Okay.
And then if we have these discussions, and hopefully we can figure this out before we have truth and taxation and have to come up with an actual budget, then we can remove that number. But I'm just saying, I don't want us to not budget more bins, because
So we can always
But
overshoot.
didn't we already council approve budgeting for 24 for,
For 40,000
okay, for the arm and the bins?
in the bins,
so-
yes.
so
That,
for-
as soon as I get the updated quote, I'll be making that purchase, and that will be coming in this year.
So that's not this
That's
40,000.
24, so.
that's
that
what
was
I'm saying
already-
for 25.
For 25, yes.
Budget yourself more bins.
Yep.
Right, cause that was already budgeted and approved by council.
Yep.
So that could have been spent or already in place, basically, so if you budget double that, the current amount for 25, or another 200 and some bins for 25.
Chuck, what is the cost per bin based on your last quote?
My last quote, it is roughly $95.20 for a 95-gallon bin.
What was it?
$95.20.
So roughly,
Per 95
so
gallon
roughly
bin.
a hundred per bin.
Correct.
How many households do we have in the city?
How many households do we have in the city
It's
currently?
just a general question to anyone in this room.
We have 2,596 water connections.
Yeah, residential's like 1,900.
Okay.
1,900, okay. So you think half?
Half of 1,900?
Yeah.
I mean, we can budget for that many, and it takes about a month to bring in the bins, because they heat stamp them and everything.
And to your point, it's 2 bins a household,
2 bins a
Yeah.
household.
So that's 1,900 bins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know part of your concern was storage, right? But
What's that?
part of your concern was storage, I think you said.
Yeah, storage, and, you know, I wanna see the program take off, I really do.
I mean, this is where I'm saying, like, how, can we put something out on our website where it's pre-register for a bin?
Yep, we, I have
Do
a
that next
form
week.
temporarily made. I mean, I could put something out, yeah.
I think that would give us a very good idea.
If we.
Sure.
It's hard though.
Service, I apologize, go ahead, Nick.
Oh, no.
If we purchase 2 bins per household at 25% of the households, we'd be looking at about $95,000.
And that's why I'm saying, continue to
what we
look
should
at
budget.
talking with outside sources.
Yeah.
Now, again, when we're saying $95,000, I'm assuming that I have to buy my bin, right?
It would just, no, you don't buy your bin, it's a, monthly fee. That's all it is.
Again, I'm going to be paying for this, I'm
Oh,
assuming
yes,
that
yeah, you're gonna be paying,
it's going to pay, it will pay back,
yep,
right?
yeah.
And that's what I'm saying, like, we should get a form out there where it's pre-register for a bin and it's like, you get your name in and you're the first, we'll just work our way down.
Yep.
You know, and then that gives us a good idea then also of, maybe I'm a crazy person and there's 10 people in the city that want a bin. Like,
Well, so far I haven't sent anything out and I already have 3 people that have their name
Oh.
down for a bin service.
Well, so then we'll see something reflected on the revenue side for the bins.
It would be an upfront cost with a replacement as the expenses go through. And we would have to identify a life expectancy of the bins. I know that the hinges tend to go.
Especially at 50 below.
So, yeah, and then we would also have to have extra bins on hand for any of the bins that are broken, so we can get them out there and replace them, yep.
As a capital expense on this is, are we comfortable with 100,000 being a 25% coverage at 2 bins per household?
I think that's fine, knowing that, again, people that are wanting these bins are paying for it.
Yep.
Even if maybe it's a service and you're paying $50 up front for the bin and then it's a service afterwards, right? Like, I'm not saying like, this is just me making things up, so nobody like quote that that's the numbers that I'm recommending.
Yeah.
But like, I would assume that this will pay itself back. It's an upfront cost from the city that
Yeah.
we then recoup that revenue
Yeah, we
to
will
pay for
recoup
it.
the revenue, yep.
But I also don't wanna go buy 1,000 bins and then nobody gets it, right? But I'm saying that's why, like, if we can put out, nobody from IT is here, but I know there are forms within.
I think
Yeah,
that would be a
I-
likely, a good idea to start with that as a budget.
I can work with Zach, to create a form that we can put on the Public Works website. Would be advertised on the main page of the city of Crookston. You know, pre-register here if you would like a bin service. And they can kind of have it broken down on there, what that service would consist of and the fees, yep.
I think we have to find another way to reach people too, cause we saw lack of survey,
Yep.
you know, being returned with the other surveys that we've done recently. So if we can put a note on the water bill maybe, or something like that, so that people know that this is.
For sure, we will advertise on the websites, social medias, Channel 3, we can do KROX,
Water, I think water bill, everybody looks at their water bill.
Yeah, I could just, no, we
I
did
could see if
all
there's
those
a,
things,
like a
but there
line
was
item that
so
Lynn
few
can put
surveys
on there for the
returned.
water bills. Yeah.
It's not easy to add advertisements to water.
To the water bill?
I'm guessing it's a preset
It takes like
template.
2 months to get a print back from
Yeah.
our, and it's not free either.
So can we just staple something
I'm
to it?
gonna throw something out here.
I'm willing to staple, I'll volunteer to staple.
Again, there's price to it. I can price it out for everyone if we want, but every door direct mailer through the postal office, you just buy postal routes and you just drop off chunks and it just gets mailed to everyone.
Perfect.
That's
I can happily price that out quickly.
Yeah, we could probably Google it while we're sitting here.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it's the printing cost, but I can tell you exactly. Give me if you continue on and I'll tell you what it would cost for the mailage part, so.
I'm just thinking so you can get an actual result and not, you know what I mean?
For sure, yeah.
When are when is the university's basketball team and the EDA folks, when are they going out to do their survey? Because they're gonna knock on every door in town.
They're just knocking on doors in Ward 1, 5, and 4.
1, 4, and 5?
And I think I ran into Shannon, and I think they're going out next week. Don't quote me on that. To talk about empowering.
It would cost, now again, there's printing costs, we'd have to talk to our local print shop, but it would cost $268.94 in postage to mail out to every household in the town.
That's not bad.
Amazing.
Let's do it.
There's some regulations, I'm happy to go down this, I've gone down the road. It's not a fun project, but I'm happy to join.
Well, maybe we can talk later this week.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
We'll have to get volunteers to put them in bundles of 100.
Yes, yep, you do, trust me, I've been there, I filled out the forms, I've been there, I can do this, I've made all the mistakes. I've showed up at the post office with 5,000 and they're like, wrong size and orientation, I was like, great, I'll see you in 3 days.
Make sure that little stampy looking thing is in the right corner of the page too.
I have made all of the mistakes, I have templates now.
Yes.
Good idea.
So the question is how many bins do we wanna leave in the budget?
Well, at 100,000, that would be 950 bins, that would be roughly 400 and a quarter, or 475 households. I think that's a pretty good guess as far as the
For that
beginning.
much, and then I'll just make sure our inventory doesn't run low, so if people keep coming in, I can keep running them out to them.
What is the turnaround on order to reception?
I was told from the last quote to get the arm and the bins coming in, it would take a max of 2 months.
What about just bins?
Just bins, that could be up to a month, 2 months again. It depends, who they're fulfilling different bins for, different orders for, yeah.
Even if we have a larger order?
Even if they're gonna ship them in semi-truckloads to us. It could save on freight that way. They do recommend storing them inside for, making them last.
There's gotta be cold or heat storage.
What's that?
Cold storage works?
Yeah, we can make it work. We can move some stuff around.
I hope so, otherwise you don't want it all garbage in the winter or what?
Well, I don't know, I mean, just for storing for, it could be temperature change for 3 years.
Yeah, what's nice is, if the temperature drops, really low, as long as we don't mess with the bins, they're not gonna start breaking on us. That's the hard part, is when it's like -30 out and then someone's grabbing a bin with the claw or something like that, and then it ends up being super brittle. But we won't be slamming them down, we don't have a claw that's gonna be grabbing them, we just have a pneumatic arm that we kind of latch onto it, and I was told that the crossbar is reinforced, so it would last.
Sorry, I did not click a thing, it's $800, but either way, it's still cheap.
So good.
Sheesh.
Maybe.
It's way cheaper than any other way to market, trust me.
And that's why you get so much junk mail that way.
Mm-hmm.
What was the return on the bin that we figured out, Chuck, though? I mean, do you wanna hit the levy with 100,000, cause you're gonna have additional revenue coming in, so do you just leave them both flat so that, I mean, your revenue is gonna go up with your increased can utilization.
Right.
Yeah, I have this, line item coming out of a reserve as opposed to the levy.
That makes sense, knowing the revenue would.
We were looking at, or I was looking at the past quote and anticipating what the new quote will come in at. And then when we met with the different, garbage companies, you know, I feel comfortable going $16 a month for the 2-bin service.
When you say 2 bins, does that include, is
You
the?
get recycling and
Okay.
garbage. Yep.
That's what I wanna make sure.
We just wiped out your $150,000 law reduction. No, I'm kidding. And I know that there are several areas here, so I wanna give council time to scroll through. We do have several line items that when you look at the percentage column, the percentage change is high, but the dollar amounts are very low, in most cases. As an example, I have one here that's 383% increase, but that's small tools, it's 207 budgeted this year, nothing has been budgeted in the prior 2 years, and 3,200 spent this year, so we budgeted $1,000 to be, have some sort of a realistic number there, that's 43,100,0240.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting going through the budget this year. This is my first year really diving into it. And then before me, it was Brandon for the 1 year, and then prior to that was always Pat Kelly. So, you know, a lot of my information is coming from Brandon. Okay, why did he budget what he did? And then he's been with, you know, the city for 18 plus years.
Snow and ice removal, do you got any deduction in that? Why, it looks like,
That's from wages, sir, we've not accrued or allocated the wages to that department as of yet. The wages are all in the first line item, the wages at the top. At the writing, when Chuck and I had time to sit down and talk, I had not received the allocation breakout percentages at that point, but we will be breaking those out, so some of those are artificially low.
So that intergovernmental revenue, are those the funds that we get because we have state highways running through town? Yep. Okay. And it looks like it's pretty flat from previous years, huh? That's, if you're looking, everybody, that's on page 2 at the bottom of the page. 101, 3,300, 3418.
Mr. Mayor, if you'll note on line 43,0101, the wages in that line are 725,000 for the department. Previous years, that line was about 30,000. So we just need to we'll be allocating those out to the different sections.
Okay. So does that mean that, for example, coaches will be, that'll fill in under coaches at some point?
Pardon?
So some of those salaries that are in that lump salary, coaches will be included in that?
Coaches?
Coaches? Salaries for coaches? 101, 4,300, 103 coaches. There's zero budgeted.
Oh, well, there will not be coaches budgeted. You'll note that that has never been budgeted in this department. And I'm going to highlight that right now as another one of those redlined items.
Okay, I thought.
That should not belong in this department.
I was wondering why Park, what kind of coaching?
As you look through, you will find we have para, police, and fire in every department in the city. And obviously, we do not use that line item in every department of the city. We do have some significant cleanup in our chart of accounts necessary. As they've been pointed out, we're highlighting them, and after we get through the budget season, Holly, Lance, and I will be going through and cleaning those out prior to our upgrade to Encode 10, if possible.
Well, I think that sometimes some of these line items are kept in here to make sure we're paying attention.
You caught us, sir. So currently with the garbage cans added in, we have our current public works expenditures at 1.67 million, with 1.73 being last year's amount.
Okay.
So we do still have a significant reduction. Approximately, looks to be approximately 50,000, but I think it is a manageable number as we move forward. And as we move forward with street repairs, we will have some budget amendments once we've identified our priority list for streets, water, and sewer.
Thank you, Chuck.
Brandon, you are next up. We have water and wastewater.
Our favorite.
Yes. I love water and wastewater. We did have, Mayor and Council, we did have the discussion or the presentation at the beginning of the previous meeting, identifying a need for a rate adjustment. Those numbers, that presentation was just given to us over the last few work days, so that is not incorporated in these rates are not incorporated into these numbers. They will be moving forward as we go. However, that does fall in line with the general philosophy of underestimating revenues and overestimating expenses to ensure we're in a good condition. Our water for the preliminary budget expenditures versus the prior year is at a 2.4% increase, which is in line with inflation. Revenue budgeted at a 9.9% decrease to align with year-to-date numbers. It is anticipated these numbers will increase as we get further into cycle. We do have significant out-of-city industrial users that are just now coming into season for that usage. So the 9.9 decrease was based on our year-to-date with the knowledge going into that they are skewed low moving into the fall.
Okay, so that 601, 3,000, total revenue, we're anticipating 1.480, which is a negative 9.93 over last year, over last year, right?
Apologies, I was just shifting my spreadsheet. Which line were you at, sir?
So on the second page, other financing sources, 601, 3,000, total revenue, non-departmental. Is that where you're indicating that the decrease in revenue of 9%, 9.93?
The non-departmental?
Yep.
Yes, sir. But the water usage, the industrial water that we're looking at based on our trends is in 3,071.30 and 71.20. Our residential water also was budgeted low based on the current year-to-date trends. Again, as we move closer to end of cycle, further into the budget season, those numbers will firm and come more in line with expectations as we come through the fall and winter season. So I do anticipate some upward change in overall departmental revenue.
9% in 23, I had proposed, the proposed budget had a 10% rate increase that never happened, so.
Okay.
It basically dropped it back down to the realistic, what we're actually gonna bring in if we don't change anything.
Yeah, water and wastewater, we are currently in a good news, bad news situation. The good news is water is in a position to contribute roughly $300,000 in capital reserves. As we saw earlier, we have about a $500,000 annual need for reserves. Wastewater is running at a deficit of several $100,000. So we have good news, bad news, and as we move forward, we anticipate the structural changes with rate adjustments to make some corrections within those two funds. The largest concern that we have in both water and wastewater, we'll begin with water, is we are in the process of prioritizing upgrades and repairs in concert with street repairs. It can generally be assumed that a street in bad condition probably has bad infrastructure underneath it, because if we've replaced the infrastructure, chances are very high that we've also replaced the street above it. So Chuck and Brandon are working together to meld those two reports that we have going through. Wages have been adjusted based on the contractual obligations from the AFSCME contract. The health insurance has been left with a 7.65% increase as a precautionary measure for the preliminary budget, simply because each of our union contracts does have a reopener for health insurance. And so I did not wanna make any cuts in that until we had gone past that point and had those discussions. At that, Brandon, anything else that you have?
The notable notes I have, so to simplify the water budget, there used to be a water plant, a wells, a distribution repair. So I consolidated everything into distribution repairs for labor, so you'll notice that, all those funds prior to distribution repair have been zeroed out. And then, it'll be pretty much identical to the wastewater budget now, so you don't have to go through 6 line items, so. All the labor's under, distribution repair, and then, the water went down slightly, cause we split my salary between the water wastewater 50-50 now. Water used to take 100% just cause the money was there. But, so we made that change. There's not a huge capital improvement demand for the water like there is the wastewater department. In the 601, 494, 30, 530, there's 300,000 for water main replacement. And the dehumidifier at the water department right now is not operating. It needs a substantial repair of like 30,000, or we need to get a new one, and we've been putting 30,000 in that thing, it feels like every other year. So I did get an updated quote just today on the dehumidifier. I just threw a placeholder of 180,000 in there for the dehumidifier, and I got a quote of 250 today. So that's just from one company, but I will get another one, but I might have to increase that 180 and the 530 to 250. And then in the equipment line for the water department, the skid steer loader is at its 10-year replacement. And that's, the water department buys a skid steer, we keep it for 10 years, and then it usually goes to the street shop for another 10 years. And then we get another one, and we just keep that rotation, so that's, we really have it for 20 years. And then a new flatbed trailer to haul the new loader. Our current trailer isn't rated to haul our current loader, so if we get a new one, we'll get a trailer to match the payload of that new trailer, or new loader. But those are the 4 notable items for CIP items in the water department. I was talking to Sam a little bit earlier, you know, I think if you look at our finance statements, when you guys get them in the water department, you can see in our unrestricted reserve line, it'll show a $10 million balance. And 8.5 of that is assets that haven't been depreciated fully yet. You won't see that in the wastewater department because everything's been fully depreciated pretty much. So when you look at those, it shows that we've been investing in our water department infrastructure, and it's, you know, we've got a lot of improvements in the last 20 years that haven't been fully depreciated yet. And our wastewater's the other way around, so I've said it many times, our water department's in pretty good shape, we just need to keep it where it's at.
Yep. And so you're confident that the budget that you're presenting has enough money to maintain the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, the revenue is not there yet. If we increase our water rates to what Miranda proposed, I am confident, yes.
Okay.
And, you know, when you saw our chart, they're gonna inspect it again next summer, but that, south water tower is coming up for a paint job soon. And that's like $750,000, so that's why that year's capital improvements is so high. But it's, you know, if a good paint job lasts 30 plus years, so.
So when are we gonna paint that, Brandon?
27 is the.
27?
Is
Okay, so now I know the time frame for us to have a good logo.
There we go.
Yeah,
Okay, for a nice rebranding, get a good logo.
I'm gonna start a concrete business and a painting business.
You know.
make sure it's up and running by 27.
Okay. Henry, are you in on it?
I've got you.
Okay.
I did keep the water service, repair fund separate, cause that has separate revenue, just off of the, insurance. There's $1 a month put on every residential water account to, help homeowners repair water services from the, water main to the shut-off valve in the berm, so, just to be able to kind of track those, expenses to make sure that our reserve stays where it needs to be. I kept that separate. And that is the 49,435, and it's pretty standard in the 12,000-ish range for repairing. For the materials, and then about the same to hire somebody to do the repairs. And then the administration is just, that's got some of my labor in it, some of city administrators and accounting and Lynn in the office, but that's pretty standard year to year. There's nothing big for changes in there. That's all I have for the water fund, if anybody.
That state tax that we've been paying?
Yeah, so Jeff,
The $9.72 water fee from the state, that item, the city has previously absorbed that cost as just part of our everyday water revenues. I have always seen that separated out. And we are moving towards separating that out as a line item on the bill at 81 cents a month. So that is just to be for transparency, so that people understand it is a state tax. It costs, the city has absorbed roughly $26,000 a year in that expense. So we will be creating a line item for that revenue on the water bill and the expense, so that we can track that directly to ensure that we're in compliance with statute. As it is currently, we don't have a way of proving that we're in compliance with the statute, because we would just have to prove how many connections we have every year. If we have it billed on the bill, that provides us an automatic count.
And I may have missed this, Brandon, but 601-49-440, transfer to other funds, and the current proposed budget is $200,000. Is that from our enterprise funds?
yeah, so that's, the out-of-city customers pay a double rate.
Okay.
And I don't think it's happened since Kathy left, but, that 50% or 100% increase, they would do a journal entry monthly and send it to the improvements fund, which I believe it went to 227. But the mindset behind that was that out of city customers on the water system or sewer system haven't paid any tax or helped with the infrastructure to get the service to them. So we're sending those funds back to help with future improvements, basically.
Thank you.
And that averages right in that 200,000 every year.
Okay.
But it will go up if we increase rates.
So once again, a preliminary budget, and then we're anticipating to see some changes when we implement the new fee structure for.
Yes, sir. Again, we did draft this with a very conservative revenue estimate. That being said, the closer to the end of the year, the closer to final adoption of the budget, we will have very solid numbers at that juncture, as we will be the majority of the way through the season for our industrial and out-of-city users. We'll have a good trend to move forward with, and we can apply the new rate structure to those revenues. And with the anticipated needs of our capital and our anticipated infrastructure needs, that will be a welcome addition.
Good job.
Anybody ready to move on to wastewater?
Favorite.
We'll go to the stinky stuff now. So 602, I'll just go over my notes of what's notable in this fund. 602, 49, 500, 222, increased 10,000. We got a couple of lift station walk-in doors that are pretty rotten that need to be replaced, so that's that $10,000 increase. Notable CIP expenses in 231. We've done 50,000 in riprap improvements at the lagoons the last year or two, and we probably need about, for sure, another 3 years of that investment in the riprap at the ponds. 35,000 a year we spend on, we call it a sludge reduction program. They put bugs in the ponds to reduce the solids. 300,000 for sewer main replacement. We're projecting that in front of the street improvements. We also spend about 75,000 a year remanning old brick manholes. So that's also there. And then there's about $30 in general repairs. 331 was increased a little bit. We got good staff in our wastewater, but they're new, so I like to send them to a little bit of extra training. So I increased that line item a little bit. Other improvements, 530. Lift station 1 is on the docket to get its air exchange system replaced for 80,000. That's just the system that kicks on and pumps fresh air into the wet well before the guys go in there. Make sure there's a safe environment for them to be in there. Lift station 3 needs new drives for the pumps, so that's 45,000 for pump replacement. And then the big one in this one is lift station 5. We're digging into it with our pump company, Minnesota Pump and A2S. Lift station 5 is the Memorial Drive lift station. It struggles when we get a rain, and it doesn't have to be a huge rain. We've smoke tested quite a bit, and we're having a hard time figuring out where that water's coming from. There's only a 4-inch main that pumps to the top of the hill and discharges into Groveland. This is the 360,000 is assuming that it needs a new main to the top of the hill. there's a lot of work that needs to be done before any of this can be done. You gotta make sure that Groveland can handle the extra water.
Does it go up Locken? Is it under Locken?
It runs up Locken and pumps into the corner of Locken and Groveland there. So we don't wanna move this issue from Memorial to Groveland, but if we can right now with a 4-inch main, you can only pump like 150 gallons a minute. If we increase it to 6 inches, it goes to 400 to 500. If we increase it to 8, it just, so I think that 6-inch would get it to where it would be reliable, but we really do this, we need to make this improvement for whatever they decide will fix it. We need to invest in for those homeowners at the bottom of Memorial Drive, because they shouldn't have to deal with sewage backups when it rains. And this is the backup the other day was a different area that was a control failure. This area needs our improvements, so. And the last item is 540 is equipment for 55,000. I would like to get a large hydraulic or electric bypass pump that can be used anywhere in the city, that you would drop down in a manhole, and if a bypass pump fails, you can use it wherever we want it. So currently, until we get all our bypass pumps repaired, it would give us the flexibility to use it wherever we want it. I got a bypass pump installed in 3 this year. So 3 and 4 are our main lift stations. Our biggest lift stations have bypass pumps again, but we still have another 9 stations that don't have really good, other than taking our 4-inch trash pumps that we pump storm water with, and you can make anything work, but it doesn't work real well, so. But those are the large, there's quite a bit of CIP asked in the wastewater department for 25, and those are the large notable items. It's $1 million. Or over $1 million in capital improvements for the wastewater in 25.
Now, Brandon, and I apologize, each of our lift stations, are we set with each that has 2 operating pumps?
Yep, they have 2 operating pumps. 1 through 4 are large hub stations, have an additional 3rd pump that pumps to the river in an emergency situation. And 4 wasn't working a couple years ago, and 3, it was on its last legs, so we got those 2 figured out here, but yeah, yes, each has 2 pumps.
And do we have any information from AHS on the control board issue that we had 2 weeks ago on the other? Do we know anything more on that?
So we were talking about, until we figured out exactly what was causing the glitch, about putting a backup high level float alarm that would be cellular. The alarm would be sent cellular. And then they had a meeting and they came back and so what happens now if the control panel freezes like it did the other day, and all 4 of our lift stations, we added a couple relays that run straight to the high level float. And if the control panel fails and the lift station goes to high level, both pumps automatically start until it hits low level again. And it'll run like that until we make it there to get the control panel to start operating again, before it relied on the computer to tell it the level. And in that case of lift station 4, it froze and it thought it was in normal, operating level, so it wasn't calling to run the pumps yet. So, it did actually freeze again about a week and a half later, and the redundant system ran for us, so. We're trying to figure out if it's a corrosion issue from, lift station gases that's causing these controls to fail. This is the only panel, we replaced these panels 3 years ago, this panel's only 3 years old. This one has had little gremlins in it, that we've been dealing with here. One PLC failed already, but it completely failed, it didn't freeze like this, so we got an alarm right when it failed, so. But it's, they're gonna monitor the gases in the control panel to see if that's what's causing the issue. If that's not causing the issue, then we're gonna go back to the control panel designer and try and figure out. And these are low voltage panels, you know, it could be something as simple as a component's getting 26 volts instead of 22 like it's supposed to. So, digging into it, unfortunately, a lot of these things take a lot of time to figure out when it's an issue like this. So, but we do have, so all 4 of our lift stations have that. I'll call it an old school starter in it. Sometimes the old stuff is better at times than the new stuff, so we have the best of both worlds now. We got the PLC that should give us all the data and trending we need, but when it fails, we got the old school starters to start the pumps when it's not communicating, so. That's all I got if you're done listening to me ramble.
I think the big takeaway is, as mentioned during our rate study, our wastewater system has significant needs in upcoming years, and current needs, and we're looking at needing to make some adjustments to ensure that we're able to meet those needs as we move forward. The good news is we do not have actual wastewater plants. Those things are expensive to maintain. Our pond structure is much easier to maintain.
Yeah, I think the easiest way to explain it, I've said it to probably you guys that have been here a few years many times, but for those that are new, you know, the water department, you pump it out of the ground, it comes to the house, and then it goes to the sanitary. The sanitary runs from the house and it goes to the pumps and it's pumped to the pond. It's essentially the same system. It requires the same amount of water main, and as to get to the house, you need the same footage of sewer main. When I took over the 2 departments and combined them, the annual budget in the sewer department was $600,000. When the water department annual budget was 1.2. So that shows you the lack of funding that was in the wastewater department for a long time. So we just gotta get it caught up.
And one of the things that Brandon just went over, our water system is we have a few pumps that fill towers. Our wastewater system has many pumps spread throughout the city. So both are gravity fed, but the gravity is provided by those pumps. So with that increase in pumps, the wastewater pumps tend to not last quite as long as a water pump because of what they're moving.
Corrosive environment.
Yes.
My kudos to the guys that choose to work in that industry, because it is not fun.
You can't pay me enough money.
I'm glad I don't have to do it every day, I can tell you that.
That's for sure.
Members of the council, that does complete our departmental reviews. I will have a presentation next Monday with an overview with a recommended preliminary levy. I do have, again, areas identified where we can make adjustments. Currently, the preliminary levy is set at roughly 21.8%, and I know that our previous levy preliminary from my memory was 24, and with the final levy being roughly 18, if I remember correctly.
I think our preliminary was like 64.
Well, I mean, as a percentage increase over previous years. It is my intention to sharpen a pencil greatly in going over with department heads. Again, we have underestimated our revenues and slightly and overestimated our expenditures just to be on safe. And as we come closer to the end of the cycle, we will have the ability to hone in closer and make some better decisions on direction that we want to move in.
Okay. Sounds good.
So just so I know, so we're meeting next week to go over that, and then do we have plans for meetings like the first couple weeks of October? Or are we taking a break, or what is?
I would like to take a break the first week of October.
Okay.
It is a very tight schedule to have Monday, work through the week and be ready by Wednesday or Thursday
Fair.
for the following. So my intention is to take a break the first week, have a possibility of a workshop the first week or the first meeting of October, or possibly the second. As we move forward, I'll have that more information later this week, early next week.
So when you say that, you're saying that first week, you're saying the 7th or the 14th? Cause you wanna take a week.
The 14th, the first
Okay.
normal meeting.
So next Monday, preliminary levy is set then.
Next Monday, our preliminary levy will be set.
Okay.
Thanks, Brandon.
Thank you.
Great.
The only other thing that I have, much to the chagrin of many, but this is simply an informational piece for those members of the council who wish a copy. I did tour the mechanical areas of our pool this morning with Parks and Rec. And I just wanna be clear, I am staff, and I know that the council is fully aware of the benefits of us having a pool. I've had a pool in most of my life, being originally from Florida. Without a doubt, we have a benefit to having, there are health benefits to having that facility. My concern is simply facility condition and safety of our residents. Some of the things that I saw today, I cannot speak competently on because I am not a structural engineer. Some of the things that I saw today, I can speak competently on. I did spend 4 years in the Navy, in the nuclear power field as a machinist mate. A machinist mate's job is piping systems. The piping systems that I saw I identified between 10 and 12 critical failure points. One of which is the outlet to one of our main filtration pumps. Not being a structural engineer, I can't speak to the stability. Our pool has a window. It's an underwater window. What I've been told is that in the 70s, 80s, it was very common to have these installed so that coaches could identify from underwater the technique that their swimmers were using, so that they could then coach them to improve their technique. That window did begin some weepage. It is currently being sealed by a can of Flex Seal. The concrete ledge that holds it in place has significant degradation. I have spoken to a structural engineer. It's a firm that we do use for other things within the city, and their principal engineer has identified he's going to get a quote back to me for a full structural analysis of the facility. He has assured me that it will not be a huge blinding cost. They did just did just finish a pool evaluation for the city of Waterville in southern Minnesota. So they are well versed on the topic. Again, I and staff, we are all very aware of the benefits and the desires of the residents. However, it is also my job to provide safe environments for our residents. So that is my primary driving concern. I want to provide that safe environment. And I do not, as one or two council members overheard me earlier today, the last thing that I want to do is make a phone call to somebody because we've had a catastrophic failure and give news about a family member. That is not something that I want to have to do. But again, I do have a couple photos. I've got about 100 of them on the phone, but I've got 4 of the more egregious here, if anyone wishes, and if any audience members wish to see, I have copies as well.
I'm just gonna put this out there from the photos that I have seen. I don't feel comfortable reopening that building until a structural engineer says that we can open it.
I'm sorry, is it currently closed?
Yes.
Yeah, the fire panel doesn't work.
Yeah, that's right. Currently, we have scheduled this week for the repairs to come into play, both on the actuators for the HVAC system and the control panel.
Okay.
So it is anticipated that we will have the legal ability to reopen the facility this week.
Yeah.
Right here.
Did you say we are gonna open it up this week?
We will have the legal ability from an occupancy standpoint.
For the fire stuff.
For the fire code.
Morally, I don't.
No fire.
And I would like to remind the council, we are at a workshop, no decisions or votes can be made. This is an informational item only.
Okay. Is that it?
That is all I have, sir.
You're adjourned. Thank